Now, we've all had our expense and fun looking at the Pac 12 over what seems like decades, and the negativity surrounding the departure of USC and UCLA to the Big Ten is still swirling. But the Pac 12 is set to be the best it has been since I can remember heading into 2023. Bo Nix just announced he's returning for another year, and Oregon has a chance to be very special. Michael Penix Jr. is coming back to what should be a loaded Washington team in year two under Kalen DeBoer. Cam Rising will once again lead the back-to-back Pac-12 champs at Utah. And oh yeah, USC is returning the Heisman winner Caleb Williams and just added the best receiver in the Pac-12 in Dorian Singer from Arizona. Now that isn't even to mention what Jonathan Smith is building at Oregon State, who's coming off a 10-win season after demolishing Florida. And we all know Chip Kelly and UCLA is going to be dangerous as usual. But one of the most surprising things that most of these teams have in common, excluding USC's defense this past season, is a physical edge. The days of Pac-12 finesse are seemingly gone. And if you take stock at each conference outside of the SEC, I don't think you can find one better heading into next year. And I think there are actually some legitimate arguments that the Pac-12 could be closer to the SEC than it has ever been in 2023. Yeah, you heard that right. Either way, the star power will be immense and the contenders will be plentiful in what truly is looking like a renaissance year for the Pac-12. Last night, thinking about what we're going to lead the show with after we had talked about it a little bit, and the more I dove into the Pac-12, because I was just going to come out here and say, Bo Nix is coming back to Oregon. Oregon's got a chance to be really special, and they do. I mean, you look at what they've added already in the transfer portal. You get Trayshawn Holden to transfer in, the wide receiver from Alabama, who I think still has a ton of potential. They return weapons on offense, obviously having the quarterback and the stability back, Dan Lanning, going into year two. I think Oregon has a chance to be very special next year, but I kept looking, and I kept finding more teams that are contenders. I mean, Utah, with Cam Rising coming back, with what they've done the past two seasons with Kyle Whittingham over there, that they're going to be a problem. They're going to be overtly physical. You look at Oregon State, like I mentioned with Jonathan Smith, one of the sneakiest years in the Pac-12. Them in Washington, I think you could say. Who knows how good they're going to be next year with what they have coming back up front, their ability to run the ball, and maybe stepping up at the quarterback position or seeing somebody actually be able to upgrade themselves and become a threat in the passing game. Washington, Michael Penix Jr., USC, enough said. Jedd Fisch in Arizona, we've seen them take steps. How's Kenny Dillingham going to do at Arizona State? But it's more about the identity of the teams than it is the amount of contenders for me. It is that we are watching the Pac-12 go from a conference that the last thing you thought about is physicality to looking at Oregon and looking at Utah. Hell, looking at UCLA with what Charbonnet and DTR do in the run game and kind of that mindset change a little bit there. The Pac-12 is becoming a more physical conference by the day. And you kind of have this amalgamation of quarterbacks and star power returning in 1 year. Now, I think 2023, with being the swan song, it looks like, of USC and UCLA, has a chance for at least the Pac-12 as we know it to go out to lose USC and UCLA in the best year they've had since I can remember. Name another year, David, where the Pac-12 is going to have more momentum going into a season.
And this is one of the positive effects of NIL. You can have someone like Bo Nix who would probably have taken his chance to be a later round pick in the NFL, but now who says, well, look, I have these endorsement deals. I can come back to college. I can grow and mature as a quarterback for one more season. So you look around the landscape of the Pac-12 right now, Bo Nix now returning to Oregon. You're going to have Caleb Williams, the reigning Heisman Trophy winner at USC. You're going to have Michael Penix Jr. at Washington, who threw for over 4,000 yards this year. You're going to have Cam Rising coming back for Utah. Well, he's a junior, so I assume that he's going to come back. What's UCLA going to do? You know that Chip Kelly's going to go get him one. Is DJ Uiagalelei going to make his way back out on the West Coast? And all of this is before we even talk about the possibility of what Deion Sanders' son could do at Colorado, because he's going to bring him along with him. So the landscape of the Pac-12 as far as offenses go is going to continue to be elite, and it's going to be a lot of fun to watch next year. My question is, for all of these guys, and Bo Nix specifically, with the success that he was able to have this year, after struggling against Georgia in week one, which Georgia is a little bit of an anomaly because they're so good the past few seasons, how much of Bo Nix's success was due to not having to play every single SEC team week in and week out, and how much of it was just getting out of the Auburn system and going into an offense that allowed him to shine?
Well, I think it was a combination of pretty much all of those things. I think we can sit here and you hear us say, multiple things can be true at once, and they can. Sometimes there are binary ways to look at it, when sometimes there's one way to look at it. But when I look at playing in the Pac-12, it's obviously the defenses are not as talented, or not as fast. Let's put it this way. They're not as big and fast as what you get in the SEC. So what does that mean? The game slows down a little bit. It gives you that extra half second in the pocket. It gives you the ability to maybe outrun a couple more people. And Bo Nix was outrunning people in the SEC, but you take that talent to the Pac-12, I think it has something to do with it. I also think it has something to do with being in a system where the passing game isn't a pop-up book. I mean, Gus Malzahn's passing game, even now at UCF, I mean, it is literally a coloring book. It is what, when you get done as the dentist as a kid, they let you reach in the toy box. And what do you grab? You don't grab one of those silly strings. You don't grab one of the bouncy balls. You grab Gus Malzahn's passing game. That's exactly what it was. You go to Oregon with Kenny Dillingham, an offense that is somewhat competent. So look, and you get out of a little bit of that toxic relationship that Bo Nix had with the Auburn. And I think there's some blame on each side. I think you can blame the Nix family a little bit. I think you can blame Auburn a little bit. And I think it was best for both parties to part ways. I really do. But I think it is a combination of all of those things have led to the success that Bo Nix had and to the success he may have going in 23. I don't think we need to narrow it down to one thing or this or that. I think it's everything coming together.
Well, it doesn't help. It doesn't hurt when you have two NFL tackles as well. You can actually say, I mean, Auburn didn't have an offensive line. Bo Nix, half the reason Auburn even won games was because of Bo Nix. They were, that good running back, Tank Bigsby, Jarquez Hunter, good backup. Other than that, receivers weren't great. Offensive line weren't great. But the thing about the Pac-12 is that we talk about this every year, right? Their offenses are great. Phenomenal. They're soft on defense. That's why they go to the playoffs to get their ass whooped.
Except for Utah. I would say Utah. Utah has made defense their identity.
I would say Utah.
And who was USC's two losses?
Yeah, and who's won the conference 2 years ago?
Exactly.
Yeah, I would say Utah would be the one team there. UCLA, maybe. Oregon State, I'd probably put second. I think Oregon State right now.
Really?
If Oregon State right now gets a good quarterback out of the portal, they're top 3 team in the Pac-12.
Well, I don't think that's crazy to say they're a top 3 team. The team I've got my eye on is Washington.
Yes.
That's the team I've got my eye on for a couple reasons. They do return some talent. That was Kalen DeBoer's first year. He's going to be going into year 2 a little bit more comfortable. We obviously have the transfer portal. And in the transfer portal, what do we talk about all the time? We talk about in high school recruiting. Great players want to play with who? Great players, especially great quarterbacks. If I'm a wide receiver that is worth my salt, you just saw Dorian Singer leave Arizona to go to USC. Why did he do that? To go play with Caleb Williams. Because if I go play with a quarterback that is elite, I know the exposure I'm going to get from the media, but I'm also going to get the ball thrown to me, and every game is going to be a high-profile game. If I'm a big-time wide receiver and I'm looking to make a move, Washington is an excellent place to go because for a couple reasons. One, we know that Washington is a big brand when they get cooking. We've seen them make the playoff when they played Bama and got their head shoved in the locker, but a lot of teams have done that. But my thing with Washington is Michael Penix Jr. can make every throw. If we talk about offensive linemen, all right, I want to be in a system that shows that I can zone block, that I can pass protect. I don't want to be in a system that makes the scouts have to project me even more. I want to be in a system that they can look at and say, I've watched him do a little bit of everything. This is where he is. This is where he needs to improve. But I've seen what you have to offer. Therefore, you're a more proven commodity. Therefore, I'm going to pay more because I feel good about what I have. If I'm a receiver, I want to be in an offense that attacks all 3 levels in the passing game. Washington's offense does that. Short game, intermediate game, deep game. But also, Michael Penix can throw the whole shot versus cover 2. I can run as fast as I can for as far as I can, and Michael Penix Jr. isn't going to underthrow me. Whether it's getting the ball out quick, he can get it to me in space and let me operate. The full menu is open when you have a quarterback like Michael Penix Jr., who also, by the way, can run a little bit to extend the play, whether it's a scramble drill to get open and help me make big plays. So I've got my eye on Washington. I think you're going to see them continue to get better defensively. That was one of the areas where they struggled stopping the run. We saw it against UCLA and many examples. But I'm so excited as a person who loves the game of football. It's like the NFL. I want the AFC to be good and the NFC to be good. In college football, it's like we were talking about yesterday in an interview we're going to drop here shortly. I want every region of the country to be good. I want the West Coast to be good. I want the Northeast to be good. I want the Southeast to be good. Surprise, they are going to be good. I want the Midwest to be good. I want the Southwest to be good because it makes the game better, especially moving to a 12-team playoff. But I'm as excited. And that's my thing. We're not going to come on this show, and I'm not going to sit here and just say, all right, this is how it's always going to be. The SEC, it's how it's always going to be. Nobody else is any good really deep down. We're going to call it like I see it. And I'll be damned if I don't think the Pac-12 next year is going to be pretty close to as good when we're looking at a full-throated, full-depth conference lineup as the SEC. Who's returning better quarterbacks? It's the Pac-12.
Yeah.
That's the answer, fellas.
Yeah, no
So
doubt.
look,
I was going to say one more point on Bo Nix. You mentioned Kenny Dillingham leaving as the OC and taking the Arizona State job,
Drew
which I
Pine.
think he's going to have a lot of success.
You see his-
Will Stein?
Drew Pine just left Notre Dame and is going to Arizona State. It's going to be the quarterback.
Gotcha.
Yep,
Okay,
yep,
Drew
yep,
Pine.
yep.
No, I didn't see that.
Yep.
That's interesting. But Will Stein going to take over as the OC at Oregon, whose wife's name is Darby, funny enough.
Hey.
But just another example of Bo Nix having to play for another offensive coordinator. Has he had a different OC every year he's been in college?
Jason Campbell, who we've had on the show, love having Jason on, played for 4 different offensive coordinators, I believe, when he was at Auburn. Bo Nix, because Auburn had an offensive coordinator in Gus Malzahn, but it went back and forth calling plays. So not only did you have different coordinators, you had a coordinator and another guy going back and forth calling plays. You remember him and Chip Lindsey and that whole debacle. So look, I think Bo Nix is ingrained enough in the offense. I mean, now he's been in college, longer than Van Wilder. He should be fine calling the offense. But if you're looking down the road, if you're Bo Nix, it sucks as a player because you're having to go through all of that. But once you get done playing as a coach, you've now learned multiple systems and found ways that guys attack different guys. It actually helps you as a coach. But as a player, stability-wise, it's tough. But I think he's going to be fine at Oregon. Hey, YouTube, make sure you subscribe, turn that notification bell on, and while you're at it, after you like the video, head over to the Daily Wire Plus and become a member. You won't regret it.